The fact that you just traded on that proves that you can't be trusted.
Hands in the air. Turn around slowly.
I cannot believe you just asked me that.
You respected me enough not to lie to my face.
We took that final step and lived to tell the tale.
Something is terribly wrong in Port Charles, and the shockwaves from today's episode are going to hit fans like a freight train. Willow Corinthos receives news so devastating, so completely unexpected, that the look on her face alone is enough to shatter hearts across the fandom. And that's just the beginning. Across town, Josslyn Jax is on a desperate mission to protect someone she loves from a truth they are not ready to hear. And what she reveals could permanently change her relationship with Danny Morgan. Meanwhile, in a story that has fans holding their breath, Marco Romero makes a decision so dangerous, so utterly selfless, that it puts everything he has on the line, all for the sake of Lucas Jones. Tuesday's episode of General Hospital is not just another day in Port Charles. This is the kind of episode that reminds you exactly why this show has captured hearts for over 6 decades. Welcome back to General Hospital Media, your go-to place for the latest General Hospital drama, spoilers, and storyline updates. If you are new here, we cover everything happening in Port Charles. The secrets, the heartbreak, the betrayals, and the jaw-dropping twists that keep us all coming back for more. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on so you never miss a moment. Now, let's get into today's episode because there's a lot to unpack, and every single story hitting your screen right now is operating at full emotional throttle. Tuesday, March 10th delivers one of the most emotionally charged episodes of General Hospital we have seen in quite some time. 3 separate storylines are colliding in ways that are reshaping the landscape of Port Charles as we know it. Willow's health scare is back in the spotlight in the most alarming way possible, reigniting fears among fans who watched her fight so hard to survive before. Josslyn steps into a role that is uncomfortably familiar for her, that of the reluctant truth teller, as she confronts Danny with information that could protect him or destroy the fragile trust between them. And Marco Romero, a character who has been quietly building fan loyalty with every episode, finally reaches a crossroads that demands everything from him. Fans online are losing their minds over all 3 storylines simultaneously, and honestly, the buzz is absolutely deserved. To fully appreciate just how much weight today's episode carries, we need to step back and look at the road each of these characters has traveled to reach this moment. Willow Corinthos has already survived the unthinkable. Her battle with leukemia was one of the most emotionally exhausting and beautifully written health storylines General Hospital has produced in years. The discovery of her biological mother, Nina Reeves, the desperate search for a bone marrow donor, and the bone marrow transplant that ultimately saved her life. All of it kept fans glued to their screens for months. Willow fought her way back to Michael, to her children, to her life. She rebuilt herself piece by piece. So when whispers began circulating in recent weeks that something might be medically wrong again, the fan base collectively braced themselves. Nobody wanted to go back to that darkness. But General Hospital, as it so often does, is not in the business of letting its characters rest for long. Josslyn Jax, on the other hand, has been navigating her own emotional minefield. Her history with Danny Morgan, as a cousin, as someone who genuinely cares about him, makes her position in today's episode especially complicated. Josslyn has always been the kind of person who speaks her truth, even when it costs her something. She inherited that fire from Carly, but she's also learned some hard lessons about when honesty helps and when it burns. Danny has been moving through some turbulent waters of his own lately, caught between the legacy of his father, Jason Morgan, and a future that he desperately wants to define for himself. Whatever Josslyn knows, whatever she's about to say, it's clearly something she has been sitting on, and the weight of it has become too much to carry alone. And then there is Marco Romero. For viewers who have been watching his quiet evolution on the canvas, today's episode represents a pivotal turning point. Marco has been dancing around his connection to Lucas Jones for weeks now, a connection that is layered with history, loyalty, and something that runs much deeper than either of them has been willing to say out loud. Lucas, of course, has had his own storms to weather. His complicated family ties, his professional life, and the emotional territory he's been navigating have made him one of the more nuanced characters on the canvas right now. And Marco, standing at the edge of something that could cost him enormously, has made a choice. A real, irreversible, all-in choice. And today, we watch him follow through on it. Let's talk about what actually happens in Tuesday's episode, because the scenes playing out are nothing short of riveting. We open on Willow in what should be a routine moment. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming on the surface. But there's a fragility to her that sharp-eyed viewers have been picking up on for the past few weeks. Something isn't quite right, and today that something has a name. Willow receives news from her medical team that stops her cold. The details are not spelled out immediately. General Hospital knows how to build suspense, but the reaction on her face tells the whole story. This is not minor. This is not a precaution or a follow-up appointment gone sideways. This is the kind of news that reaches into your chest and squeezes. Michael is not with her in that moment, which makes the scene even more isolating and heartbreaking. Willow stands with this information alone, and for a woman who fought so hard to still be standing at all, the cruelty of that solitude is almost unbearable to watch. Fans are already speculating furiously about what exactly this news entails. Is her leukemia showing signs of returning? Is there a complication from the transplant? Is something else entirely at play? Whatever it is, the show is clearly positioning this as a major story engine for the coming weeks. Meanwhile, across Port Charles, Josslyn tracks down Danny with an urgency that immediately signals this is not a casual conversation. She pulls him aside, and there's a tension in her body language that Danny picks up on right away. He knows Josslyn well enough to understand that when she gets this look, whatever comes next is going to land hard. And it does. Josslyn issues a warning, a direct, unmistakable, no room for misunderstanding warning. The specifics of what she reveals are tied to something Danny has been either unknowingly involved in or willfully ignoring, and Josslyn has clearly reached the point where staying silent feels like complicity. What makes this scene extraordinary is the way it plays out between two people who genuinely love each other, but are now standing on opposite sides of an uncomfortable truth. Danny doesn't take the warning the way Josslyn hopes. There's pushback. There's hurt. There's the particular sting of feeling like someone you trust is calling your judgment into question. The conversation ends with enough unresolved tension to fuel several upcoming episodes, and fans are already divided on who was right and who was wrong, which is exactly the kind of debate General Hospital thrives on. And then there is Marco and Lucas, and this is the scene that has the fan community absolutely electric. Marco has been circling something for weeks, and today he jumps. Without getting too far into the specifics that the show hasn't fully revealed, Marco puts himself in a genuinely dangerous position to protect Lucas from something that is closing in fast. It's the kind of moment where you realize a character has fully crossed from supporting player into someone the show is investing in deeply. The sacrifice Marco makes, or at least sets in motion, is significant. It could cost him professionally, personally, or worse. Lucas, for his part, is initially unaware of the full extent of what Marco is doing on his behalf, and when he begins to piece it together, the emotional response is exactly what you'd hope for. There's conflict, there's gratitude wrapped in frustration, and there's that undeniable pull between two people who are clearly not done with each other. The scene crackles with everything the fans have been rooting for in this pairing, and it delivers without being heavy-handed about it. The General Hospital fanbase is not quiet about any of this, and that is putting it mildly. Social media erupted almost immediately after Tuesday's episode began airing, with Willow's storyline dominating conversations across every platform. The hashtag referencing Willow's health was trending within the first hour, with fans expressing everything from devastation to outright fury. Not at the show, but at the fictional universe that keeps putting this particular woman through the ringer. Longtime viewers who watched Willow's original health battle are saying this feels different from before, that the tone of today's scene has a gravity to it that makes them genuinely nervous about where the story is heading. The Josslyn and Danny scene is generating its own passionate debate. Some fans are firmly in Josslyn's corner, applauding her for speaking up even when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Others feel like her delivery was too blunt, too aggressive, and that she could have handled the conversation with more care for Danny's feelings. A vocal contingent is also wondering what exactly Danny is going to do with the warning. Will he heed it, or will his pride push him in the opposite direction? The speculation threads are long and lively. As for Marco and Lucas, the shippers are having an absolute moment. Fans who have been championing this pairing for months feel like today's episode is the show finally making good on the promise they've been sensing since these two first shared screen time. The words finally and I knew it are appearing in comments at a remarkable frequency. Even viewers who hadn't been heavily invested in either character individually are reportedly being pulled in by the chemistry and the emotional stakes of today's scenes. What Tuesday's episode really signals is that General Hospital is in a storytelling gear that feels deliberate and confident. Each of these three storylines is doing something specific for the canvas. Willow's health news reactivates one of the show's most successful dramatic engines, the vulnerability of a beloved character, while also raising the stakes for Michael and their family unit. If Willow is facing something serious again, the ripple effects will touch nearly every corner of the show. Nina Reeves will inevitably be drawn back into Willow's orbit. Michael's protective instincts will go into overdrive. And Willow herself, after everything she has survived, will have to dig into reserves of strength that even she might not be sure she has left. Josslyn warning Danny is doing something subtler, but equally important. It's establishing fault lines in a relationship that has always operated on mutual respect and affection. Whatever Danny does next will say everything about who he is becoming as a young man in Port Charles, whether he's someone who can hear hard truths and recalibrate, or whether the Morgan stubbornness runs deep enough to steer him into exactly the danger Josslyn was trying to protect him from. And Marco, risking everything for Lucas, is doing the important work of solidifying a new pairing and a new central character in a way that feels earned rather than rushed. This isn't a manufactured romance or a plot-driven convenience. The show has been laying groundwork, and today is a payoff moment that validates the patience of every fan who has been watching closely. Looking ahead, there is plenty to anticipate in the coming days and weeks. Willow's situation is not going to resolve quickly or quietly. Expect her to struggle with whether and when to tell Michael, and expect that secret to create its own chain reaction. The question of who she confides in first, and who finds out in the worst possible way, is one that General Hospital will almost certainly turn into its own dramatic storyline. Danny's reaction to Josslyn's warning is going to be a defining character moment. All signs point to him making at least one decision that proves her fears were warranted, because General Hospital rarely issues warnings that go unheeded without consequence. The fallout between these two could be lengthy, and there's a strong possibility that a third party gets pulled into their conflict in ways neither of them anticipates. For Marco and Lucas, the next chapter is about consequences. Marco's gamble has to land somewhere, and not all of those landing spots are going to be comfortable. There are forces at play in that storyline that could make Marco's sacrifice complicate things rather than simplify them. Expect tension, expect revelations, and expect this pairing to be tested in ways that will either strengthen the bond or introduce fractures that take time to heal. Either way, the show is clearly committed to these two, and fans have every reason to stay invested. Tuesday, March 10th is the kind of General Hospital episode that earns the show its legendary reputation. Willow's terrifying new medical reality reminds us that no one in Port Charles is ever truly safe from heartbreak. Josslyn's confrontation with Danny proves that sometimes love means being willing to be the villain in someone's story if it means protecting them from something worse. And Marco's extraordinary act of courage for Lucas demonstrates that the show's newest character is being built for the long haul, with all the emotional complexity that implies. These aren't isolated moments. They're the building blocks of storylines that are going to pay off in ways we can't fully predict yet. And that is exactly what makes General Hospital must-watch television right now. What do you think about everything going down in Port Charles right now? Are you worried about Willow? Or do you think the show might surprise us with the direction they take her story? Did Josslyn handle her conversation with Danny the right way? Or did she cross a line? And what about Marco? Is he your new favorite character? Or do you think his big move is going to backfire badly? We want to hear every single one of your theories and reactions in the comments below. This community always brings the best takes, and right now there is so much to talk about. If you found this video helpful and entertaining, please give it a like. It truly makes a difference for the channel. And if you are not already subscribed to General Hospital Media, Now is the perfect time to join us because Port Charles is only going to get more intense from here. We'll see you in the next one.